Yeah, thanks, Akansha.
All right, yeah. So the Gamma basically does. I usually separate it into like three categories of things. The first is an NFT marketplace, and this is basically like the OpenSea for stacks, right? It allows people to list, buy, make offers on NFTs, and with the usual functionality that you'd expect from a marketplace. So as you can imagine, this involves a reasonable amount of smart contract work, and the marketplace contracts are all, of course, written in Clarity and run on the Stacks blockchain. The second is the creator tools. And this allows you to basically, in a no-code way, launch your own NFT collection. So we go straight from, basically files on your computer to a fully deployed NFT smart contract on Stacks. And this involves, several stages of the deployment flow, right? From generating the metadata to uploading it to IPFS to creating a contract template that suits the needs of what you need, like mint pass or airdrop, to actually deploying that smart contract on mainnet and setting up a mint page for you. So there's a reasonable amount of clarity involved in there as well with generating the NFT smart contract. And then finally, we have the sort of social tools that we've started to build out on the site, like the ability to follow other users and see a feed of activity. And that's more reading sort of on-chain state and combining it with off-chain state, like your bio, your PFP and stuff like that, which is a little less clarity focused, but I'm sure there's stuff we can do there in the future that's also grounded in more of the blockchain state as well. So, at every point in the way, it's basically we touch clarity at so many different points in the product, and that's basically how I started in the Stacks ecosystem, and how Gamma started was a lot of not only deploying NFT smart contracts and learning about SIP9, and I went through all of that stuff around this time last year. It was figuring out what makes an NFT contract, how do you get everything uploaded for the off-chain state and the metadata and the images, and then how do you go from that to the on-chain state of the records of ownership? How do you go through the claim process with an NFT? How is ownership recorded in an NFT? And then later on, how do you actually make that NFT tradable on a marketplace? How do you keep allow people to basically list an NFT and keep a record of who's listed what, and make sure that when a purchase happens, that the proceeds go to the seller, that the royalties are paid out correctly, that there's no risk of exploits and hacks, which is always an issue in smart contracts. And it's basically just been a series of iterations from there as we add new features and add new functionality to the marketplace.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. Cool. So, I mean, I'm fine with making this like a kind of open discussion for anybody that has questions. I have a few questions myself, but first I'll leave it open to our students, see if anybody from the camp has questions first. Chad, I saw your hand go up.
Hi. Great, really great of you guys to be here. Really, it's really great. I have a few questions. Number one, just to let you know, Monday afternoon, I purchased my first ever NFT, and I did it at Gamma.io.
Love to hear.
Gamma. And I bought three. I bought three altogether at the Hold the Line collection. Oh, yeah. I like that collection a lot. The hardest part was going through all the collections and trying to find one that was in my price budget and that I liked. That was the hardest part, going through all the collections that you have there. That's just tremendous. And so my first question is, what is Gamma's favorite storage system and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, thanks for buying the NFT on Gamma, and thanks for the kind words. I agree too. It's like there's so many great NFT collections out there, and it's crazy to think that it's only been a year of basically Stacks NFT history that all of these collections have been produced in, and to see the like incredible diversity of collections at different price ranges and different and different styles of art is incredible. And is a testament to, I think, the Stacks community and the strength of it as well. In terms of NFT storage, we've seen it done several ways. Before Gamma, a lot of NFTs used to use centralized storage systems. So this would be like on AWS or on a site that somebody owns. And we actually found that there's several huge issues with this, right? If someone stops paying their AWS bill, then suddenly your NFT metadata goes offline. And we actually saw that happen with a few collections. A few prominent collections, actually, like Bitcoin Birds, if you go and call get token URI to get the metadata, it's broken now. So we had to cache the metadata on our own, and we're probably going to have to back it up to IPFS to be able to basically store it for the future. So we definitely aren't in favor of centralized storage solutions, even for ourselves, because there might be a future where Stacks NFTs exist and we don't, and we want to make sure that any NFTs that are deployed by creators still maintain their life beyond our own, right? And so for this reason, at least for all of our collections, we use IPFS as the addressing system and as a protocol for whatever we do. Now, there are different ways to pin your files to IPFS. The one that we use right now is Pinata, but there are other solutions available like NFT storage, which I think is backed by Filecoin, which we might actually move to later because they actually incentivize the storers of that data to store the data indefinitely, which Pinata doesn't. But anybody can replicate and basically pin any NFT metadata that we have stored on the site. So long story short, IPFS is what we use right now. I've seen Arweave being used as well. I don't understand the trade-offs as perfectly between IPFS and Arweave, but there are certainly a lot of great solutions, storage solutions built on top of IPFS, and has become the industry standard for basically where NFT metadata and images are stored. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much for that answer. My next question is, number 2 is tips on finding and recruiting an artist when you want to go and build an NFT. Any secrets that you can share on recruiting, and what's your 1-minute elevator pitch to an artist?
I think if you'd asked this question like a couple months ago, even, I probably would have had a much harder time answering, because it was hard to find artists. That's not my specialty, is not, I'm more of like a in the weeds code person and less of an artist outreach type person. But it's so important. I think it's actually the most important job that we have. And I think a lot of the team has done a great job at reaching out to artists and onboarding them into the ecosystem. So Brett, or Eli Herf, as you might know him on Discord, has done a great job of doing this. And I think the main value proposition that sticks with a lot of artists is the fact that you want your art to be secured on the most secure blockchain and the most long-lasting blockchain. And I think this makes a lot of sense, especially in light of recent events that are going on in other parts of the crypto universe right now, right? With Solana sort of at risk with the FTX turmoil, and other chains that sort of just haven't gained as much traction. And I think the value proposition of NFTs secured by Bitcoin is getting stronger and stronger. And for artists, it's just such a clear value proposition to be able to secure their work with Bitcoin. And we look at artists that are right now doing work on other chains primarily because they're already at least crypto native and exposed and understand NFTs, as well as those artists that come from the traditional art world but have dabbled in NFTs but want to learn more. We haven't done as much outreach to artists that don't have any exposure to NFTs because we want to learn how to, sort of create these concentric circles of involvement in crypto. It's easier to onboard crypto native people from one blockchain stacks, slightly easier to and slightly harder to onboard people that have just dabbled in crypto or are crypto curious. And then the broader concentric circle is like just artists who produce great art but haven't had any exposure to crypto at all. Also want to even Jack on this call has been great at bringing in artists. He brought in like one of the best artists that has ever produced work on Gamma, Tyler Faust, who did it like the Reddit NFT avatars as well. So the whole team has been absolutely incredible at bringing in artists. It's probably my my biggest weak point, but the team's been great.
Thank you. Thank you. Great answer. My third question and my last question. This has been in the news, so maybe you know what I'm about to ask. What effect in the long run and the short term will FTX blow up have on Bitcoin, Stack, and Gamma?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what's good about stacks is that, you know, FTX has generally close connections within their sort of realm of like their insider cabal of people. So FTX Ventures, for example, has a bunch of investments, and they required those people to keep their money in FTX, and then, you know, it was just like a whole cycle of investing in companies that would then bank with FTX, and they could reinvest their money into other companies and stuff like that. And none of this was really something that had the Stacks ecosystem had any exposure to, or even that many Bitcoin ecosystem members had any exposure to. So I think the effects are more on like the broader attitudes toward crypto rather than any direct exposure. I don't know of anybody in the Stacks ecosystem who had any companies in the Stacks ecosystem who had direct exposure to FTX, but then you see sort of downstream effects. Like, for example, NeoSwap was, Solana is next on their roadmap, and they're going to launch their Solana beta. But now they have to like reevaluate their strategy and maybe think, okay, do we do Polygon? How does this affect our stacks play? So I think rather than having like direct impacts of like now a company is insolvent because of FTX because their money is not there anymore, that's happening in like the Ethereum and Solana ecosystems. That's not happening in the Stacks ecosystem. Trust Machines, Hero, they're not exposed to FTX as far as I know. And I think they've come out and said that. Alex, likewise, Gamma, likewise, we never touched any FTX, 3 Arrows Capital, none of that stuff. So I think any sort of downstream effects will happen sort of second and third order effects rather than first order effects.
That's great. Just to follow up, do you see it being the FTX blow up, the scandal, having the greatest effect on those that have heard about crypto or Bitcoin and they're just kind of on the fence? Like, is it going to push a lot of people off the fence into negativity, do you think?
I think probably short term. I think, yeah. I mean, some of my friends that aren't into crypto have heard about the FTX thing. My, parents will ask me about it, and they don't own any crypto, right? So I think it's naive to say that it won't have any negative effects among the public perception of crypto. But I think you sort of have these ebbs and flows of public perception that happen from events. The Mt. Gox was probably the earliest notable example, although probably the people that knew about that at the time was a lot more limited than the people that heard about FTX. But I think when you look at, I'm not such a fan of people who say, crypto happens in exactly 3-year cycles or something, but you generally see the order of magnitude of how long a crypto cycle lasts it's long, right? The bear market lasted from 2018 to basically 2021, which was 3 years. And this one could be shorter, it could be longer, and nobody knows. We could be at the bottom now, or the bottom could be a year from now. So I think it's just worth, if you have conviction in the principles of crypto and the principles of decentralized ownership and the principles of making, asset ownership free or fair, then it's a no-brainer to just keep building and keep focusing on what you feel is important and what you feel is meaningful to you and what you feel is meaningful for the world, despite public perception going, up and down as it will.
And I think
thank you so much. Thank you for your great answers. Thank you.
just to jump in, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think one of the things, like, this hasn't been as talked about, but my understanding is that there's issues with NFTs, and because FTX used custodial NFT marketplace, people are obviously having trouble accessing any assets on that platform. And one of the cool things that we get to do is, deploy your own contract. So if you want to launch a collection or you want to collect something, doing something in the more proper Web3 way really just kind of helps prevent this type of thing. As long as like the end user owns their keys and can own their assets, like you're not going to run into a situation like this.
Yeah, that's a really good point that Jack made. Like something that, like what FTX did, would be impossible for Gamma to do. We never custody any assets. We basically operate as a purely decentralized exchange and a purely decentralized creator launch platform. So as soon as you launch your NFT collection, there's nothing we can do to stop it afterwards. No matter what you do, you've deployed it. You own that now. It's not our collection, it's your collection. You've generated we just code generated a smart contract and now you deployed it. And so it's deployed from your address. You can manage, the pricing, you can manage the metadata, you can manage everything. Sometimes people comes with the downsides too, because people will ask us, can you help me with this? Can you like change the metadata? Can you change this? And no, you can, but I can't. As soon as you've deployed it, so there's nothing we can do, but we can help you make sure that you can make those changes yourself. And likewise with the marketplace, any NFTs that are listed on Gamma, we have no power to unlist them. We have no power to take them. They're yours in the smart contract, and we just display them. We could choose not to display them, like we own the front end and the database, but from a smart contract point of view, there's nothing we can do about your ownership. It's always there, and you can always see it on chain and always verify it at any time, which wasn't true of centralized exchanges like FTX.
I have a question for you that's kind of a good follow-up to what you were just saying about how Gamma is a peer-to-peer marketplace. I was wondering if y'all have considered starting an NFT lending protocol like what Liquidium's trying to do, or partnering with them or something like that. It's kind of in y'all's wheelhouse, and you have the users and sort of the market share. So
yeah, I think for me, what I think there's like certain primitives that you want to work on in an ecosystem, especially early on. So for example, the first version of STX NFT was just a website where you could type in your BNS name and see the NFTs that you own. And then you were able to like transfer your NFTs, and then you were able to mint NFTs, and then the marketplace. And they're like a series of primitives that I think are very important to have, such that anybody else can build on top of them. And what we're trying to do at Gamma right now is build those basic primitives, like the marketplace, the NFT metadata APIs, like Xverse, Console, Flatlay, Friends, they all use our NFT metadata APIs as well. So we're trying to build like some of these base layers. And I think that creates a healthy ecosystem on top of those base layers. So you can create an NFT lending protocol. You can create, stuff like Console, stuff like Flatlay, which is like NFT gated commerce, stuff like, the Xverse NFT wallet. So I think I would rather like try to focus on how to create a flourishing NFT ecosystem on top of Stacks rather than like try to take all of those verticals for ourselves. And I think it works out better for us too. It's not like an altruistic thing, like, oh, you know, everybody else can have it. It also helps us to be able to focus on doing what we do well, because we're a small team. We're only about like 9 people, right? 10 people. So we can only do a few things well. And I think one of the things that we focus very deeply on is creating a great user experience, making sure everything works well, making sure that if someone has a support request, we can respond to it within like, you know, the hour. And we wouldn't be able to do those things if we spread our focus too thinly. We want to make sure that we build that like base layer really well so that other people can build great things on top of it and give the attention and focus to the user experience, the support that we simply wouldn't be able to running all of the infrastructure, the marketplace, and the base layer well.
That was an amazing answer. I'm really glad to hear that that's your perspective. But by the way, I love what y'all built so far, and I really think you've created like a ton of value in the ecosystem. And like, I mean, just in a year, the user experience of Stack's NFTs is just light years ahead of where it was. So nice work.
Appreciate it. Yeah, there was definitely a lot of room for improvement when we first launched, but it's been awesome working in this ecosystem since then.
Cool. And I really like the concept of following other principals and liking their NFTs. So I was wondering if you have like any ideas or that you'd be willing to share. What does Gamma possibly look like in 10 years? Like, could it be a social media platform or something like that?
Yeah, I think we're just starting to see like what the future of NFT marketplaces look like. And it's something that I really enjoy thinking about and discussing with other people on the team as well. Is I think we've sort of seen this local maximum of the OpenSea sort of model for what an NFT marketplace looks like. And most NFT marketplaces adopt that model. Magic Eden, even us, it sort of generally looks like OpenSea with different UIs, different features, different user experiences. I think, you know, there's certainly a lot of differentiation between the platforms, but generally it follows that same model. And I think there's a lot of room for experimentation and innovation. There's some like SudoSwap that just operate on a completely different model of how to buy and sell NFTs. Zora, which has its own competing platform to OpenSea. I think rather than just focusing on the protocol level, like a lot of people are doing on Ethereum right now, we're focusing a lot on the marketplace experience. And that's why the social aspect, I feel, is quite important. It doesn't have anything to do with the marketplace protocol itself, but it gives you, I feel like NFTs are a very personal experience. Just like, you know, just like Chad was saying, it was like browsing NFTs and figuring out, you know, which collection he vibed with, which collection matched his price point. It's not like buying a stock in that way where you're like, you know, looking at investor reports or looking at a bunch of metrics and like trader analytics, although I'm sure that's part of it. It's honestly a very personal experience and a very community driven experience. And I think marketplaces right now don't do a very good job of leaning into that. Like on OpenSea, you don't get a sense of any of that stuff. And right now, even on Gamma, you get only a limited sense of that stuff. You can follow people, see what they're trading, see what your friends are doing. But there's so much more we can do along those lines when you visit, for example, a collection page to see who the other holders are, to see what they're talking about, to see what they value. I think at least when I buy an NFT, it's a lot driven by the community that of holders that owns it. It's driven by an appreciation for the art. It's driven by, you know, some of the benefits that it can give you as well. So, but a few of those things are surface. And so I think as we see marketplaces evolve, I'm sure there'll be more innovation on the protocol side, like SudoSwap, AMM style, or other marketplace protocols ideas. But where I want to focus on is more experimentation on the marketplace experience side and figure out how you can make it like a more human experience when browsing a marketplace.
I love that. I've got one more question. So I was wondering where or how is the user's data stored for NFTs, like what they've liked and the accounts that they follow? Like, is it public, or does Gamma have private access to it?
That's a good question. Right now it's we used to store it on Gaia, but Gaia had some limitations that were quite hard to work around. So we ended up using we store it in our own database, authorized by message signing. So you don't need to create an account. You just sign a message with the wallet to prove your ownership. And then that allows you basically the right access to the database to add followers, to add favorites or whatever. Reading that information, we currently don't expose it through a public API, but I don't see, we probably will in the future. It's just not, as we start focusing more on that decentralized aspect of it and creating this base layer for others to use. I'm sure the following graph, the favorites data would be useful for other applications to build on top of. But right now it's just in the database. So and I think there's actually some room for on-chain stuff as well, although the friction there, especially with Stacks block times, is not great. Like you would need to wait 10 minutes to have anything confirmed. So I think it sort of precludes using any sort of on-chain solution for that right now.
Cool. So y'all do not see that data as a source for revenue generation down the road?
No, I think there's a, like, what we see is right now the social aspect is sort of like a funnel to coming to Gamma, to interacting with the marketplace, to buying NFTs. I think it's important to align incentives correctly in a marketplace. So I'm not going to rule out like anything in the future, but like certainly it's not on my mind right now, because I think the great thing about aligning incentives for encouraging right now, for example, the only two ways we make money are if an NFT is sold on the marketplace from secondary sales, or if an artist sells an NFT from primary sale, like an auctions or a mint. And this means that it's a win-win in both cases, right? If an artist sells their NFT, they get 90% of the money and we get 10%, right? So if we win, the artist wins 9 times bigger than us. And if someone sells an NFT and to someone else, we take a 2% commission, they take the rest. So if we win, the seller wins almost an order of magnitude more, over an order of magnitude more than us. So, but when it comes to advertising or potential ways to monetize the social graph, I don't see the incentives aligned as clearly with the users and with the creators. And I'm sure maybe there may come a time where that's the case, or we can find the right incentive alignment. But I really like the incentive alignment right now, which is that when we win, our users win, and when we win, creators win. And that to me is quite compelling right now, and I want to keep it that way.
Hello, it's Steen. You see a future in music in NFTs, or how you see that growing? Or
yeah, I think right now I think the use cases that we see for NFTs have been much more limited than what they could be. And I think this is one thing that we could do a better job at in the creator tools, for example. Right now, the creator tools focus a lot on specific type of media. Music is one of them. So we support music NFTs out of the box, but there's a lot more you can do with NFTs, right? When you talk about music NFTs, you have stuff like Royal, which does royalties based on who owns the music NFTs. You have other platforms that you can buy music samples and you own the IP to those samples to use in your music, or license those IP from those samples. I think that could be a huge area as well. I think there's so much experimentation that's going to happen around NFTs, and I want to figure out the best way to facilitate that. I don't think it's necessarily the marketplace's best job to like try to pick and choose winners of like, these are going to be the categories of NFTs that will win, but we got to figure out the best way to make sure that everybody can create and experiment and try those NFTs so that the market and users and creators can figure out what they find most valuable. But right now, music NFTs have been a pretty important part of the way Stacks NFTs have evolved. Like when Project Indigo came out with their game, they minted the soundtrack to the game from Longstreet as an NFT mint. You have like several artists that published their music NFTs on Gamma and elsewhere. So I'm excited about music NFTs.
And like, how does it work with reproduction rights and all these things? Like, if you buy an NFT, that whole music, can you reproduce it, or how does that work?
Yeah, we just added the A16Z came out with these Can't Be Evil licenses. So they came out with a couple different license types of how you can use the NFT. So for example, one of them was creator retains all rights. So you can buy the NFT, but you don't necessarily get the IP rights to it. Another category was like, if you buy the NFT, you can use the IP for personal use. Another one was if you buy the IP, you can use it for commercial use. And then there are hate speech exceptions if you choose to opt into that as well, which means you can use the IP as long as it's not for hate speech. And in the creator tools now, we have the option to select which license you want to associate with the NFT. So if you want to make it so that whoever buys the NFT gets commercial rights to use that NFT, you can specify that in the creation flow. Or if you want to retain all rights, or if you just want to allow it for personal use, that's now an option that we offer from the licensing side.
And like, you're not thinking about selling like fungible tokens, like one song is one specific just one token, and it's not a non-fungible token, or?
Yeah, I think if we did fungible tokens, we'd have to think about it a bit further, because right now the experience on Gamma is very centered around the NFT buying, selling, viewing experience. And we don't really have the, like, if we, for example, launched a fungible token, I like to think of things from like the total user experience, right? From creating to like when someone mints it, to viewing it in their wallet, to selling it, to like, you can do basically that whole end-to-end NFT experience on Gamma. If we did minting fungible tokens, for example, you would sort of have this like kind of chopped off experience where you can mint the fungible token, but then how do you like view it in your wallet? What does it mean? Do you go on Alex and sell it or something like that? So I think for fungible tokens, it's probably better right now that someone else handles that. Just going back to the focus thing as well. And of course, if you wanted to do something like fractionalizing NFTs and maybe make one NFT and then fractionalize it and make tokens, I think that's an example of a perfect company or protocol that can be built on top of what we offer to better facilitate, fractionalizing NFTs or IP based on fungible tokens that you could do on top of Gamma's protocol or as part of another Stacks ecosystem effort.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I'd love to hear from all three of y'all. What attracted you to Stacks in the first place?
Yeah, I can quickly go first because I know both Jack and Joe have a lot to say on this as well. For me, I started off in Bitcoin around 2013, 2014. So I've always been a Bitcoiner. It wasn't that early, but it was early enough to see the ecosystem like evolve quite considerably since then. So seeing Ethereum smart contracts come out, that's what really like made it click for me. I had bought Bitcoin earlier and like a little bit, never made any money off of it or anything. But what really clicked for me was when Ethereum came out and we saw smart contracts and you saw all of these interesting applications come off from this idea of like a world state. And last year I stumbled onto Stacks and it was the first example I'd seen of people trying to build that on Bitcoin. Which to me is the most secure, the most decentralized protocol out there, launched in the fairest way, has in my opinion, the most elegant protocol out of any blockchain out there. And so, it basically combines those two principles of like the decentralization and security, and immutability of Bitcoin with the magic that I see of the world computer and the endless possibilities that are out there, it was like a no-brainer to start at least building in this ecosystem. And it was also quite a green field too. So not all of it was principled. It was also just like, it was a lot of fun to build in an ecosystem that was kind of early and where there wasn't a lot of tools there. It was like building something from scratch, where there wasn't even a way to view the NFTs that you owned when I joined the Stacks ecosystem. So that was the first thing that I built, was just a website to view the NFTs that you owned. And it was fun to explore an ecosystem where nobody really knew. We were all figuring it out together. Yeah.
Joe, you want to go or you want me to go?
I can go real quick, just because Jamil said a lot of what brought me to Stacks, and it was Bitcoin back in 2018 when I learned about Bitcoin. It was just really exciting, and Ethereum had this concept of smart contracts, and that was also equally exciting. So here we are 4 years later, and I discovered Stack near the end of last year. That's when I first started hearing the name. And when I learned that the thesis was, well, we're bringing smart contracts and programmability to Bitcoin in a way that keeps Bitcoin secure. Like, they are adamant and upfront that we're not here to change Bitcoin. And that's a big deal, because that's the reason Bitcoin works as well as it does, is that it's designed to be very consistent. It should be the same thing 100 years from now and 1,000 years from now. So Stacks is the unique way of bringing that extra layer of smart contracts to Bitcoin in a way that keeps Bitcoin solid. So yeah, that's the biggest reason I think Stacks is the place to be. But again, do your own research.
Yeah, I have a similar history with crypto as Jamil. I remember it was around like sophomore year of college. I kind of discovered it, and similarly didn't make really any money on it, but I was a computer science and economics major, which I think is kind of the perfect convergence of those two things, and crypto. And I remember, like, I wrote an essay on Bitcoin, and my friend, one of my buddies who's kind of a non-crypto guy, actually pointed out Ethereum to me before I caught on to it, and was dismissive at first. But then once I finally like took a look into it, was interested, and kind of have just been along that, been through the ups and downs. And then I guess a year ago, probably roughly, or maybe 14 months ago, I came across Stacks. I'd heard about Blockstack previously. I knew that they had like kind of a proper token offering with like the SEC approval and all that. But it wasn't until kind of I'd seen some action on Twitter that got me to dive into Stacks. And it was like, even with, using Ethereum and whatnot, I had only really ever bought one NFT on Ethereum, and was kind of not impressed with the experience with gas fees and everything like that. And then when I came across Stacks, I jumped into the community, which is like by far and away like the number one highlight for me when I first joined, was how welcoming and like less crazy, I guess, than like Ethereum Discord communities. And not only Discord, but just in general, it's easy to get like lost in the sea of Ethereum world. Whereas in Stacks, like I feel even to this day, like you still have such a voice and like a sense of community in the Discords, even through where we are in the bear market. And so I started buying NFTs, started engaging with Jamil, and other community members, started using Stacks NFT at the time. And I would send over like little bug reports I had, just copy and paste the console over to you every once in a while. And then, yeah, one day I always wanted to take the leap into crypto, and I finally just pinged Jamil and was like, hey, like if you guys are ever looking to build out an engineering team, like I'd be interested. And then he did reach out and say, we kind of are getting to that point. And I was like, got cold feet a little bit. I had a wedding right around the corner. And then I ended up joining like 1 month before my wedding anyway. So in pure wedding crunch time, I was like, all right, let's change jobs. Let's do the crypto thing. And yeah, zero regrets. It's also just awesome going from like using Java 8 at a government consulting firm to like using the newest and greatest tech and working with like a cool small agile team has just been awesome. And I think like the community right now is just like so helpful when like anytime I had questions on something, I could pop into the Stacks Discord and go to the developer chat, and the response time is awesome there. And just like the ecosystem is so great to build in. So yeah, that's kind of my journey into Stacks.
That's really cool. You had me grinning big there, Jack.
Well, to some people in this chat dismay, I did do last Clarity Bootcamp, except I didn't really do it because things were too busy. So I have all the assignments like still bookmarked, and I'm going to do them all. But yeah, I need to get through that.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in here now and kind of not derail the conversation, but take it in a more technical and clarity focused direction. Because this is a question that I've kind of had, and I'm hoping that it'll be helpful to everybody here as well. But I was hoping that you guys could talk to clarifying how to use the get token URI function. And so from my understanding, Clarity doesn't make it easy to kind of get that URI on the back end and bring in the correct ID for the NFT. And so that all needs to be extracted to the front end. And the way that I've done it, I think is a hacky way to do it, and maybe not the best way. So yeah, I was just curious if you could maybe speak a little bit to clarifying how to make that work with Clarity.
Yeah, so this will be addressed in Clarity 2.1. The issue in particular is that you have in get token URI, you pass in a token ID and you get the basically IPFS path to the metadata for that token. And what you would want is, like, for example, if you pass in token ID 1, you get the IPFS hash, and maybe if it's a directory, you'd get IPFS linked to a hash / let's say 1.json. But right now it's actually very hard to convert an integer or a uint, which get token URI takes, into a string, which would be the return type of that function. So actually it's in ERC 1155, they actually have a specification on Ethereum that says in the token URI, you can, instead of putting the number ID, you can replace the token ID by a placeholder. So it says that any instance of like curly brace ID, close curly brace will be replaced by the token ID. And so many contracts on Stacks use something quite similar. I actually had this pulled up because I was just sending a Discord message to someone who was asking what the metadata for CrashPunks was. So literally like 2 seconds ago, I had this pulled up in the sandbox. So if I query this get token URI, I can see this IPFS path CrashPunks /ID .json, and no matter which token I give, having some UI issues there, it returns the same result. And so this ID is just replaced with the token URI, and then that will give you the IPFS metadata for that token. So if we go to 100.json or whatever, I think it's CrashPunks 100.json. As you saw in the token URI, it's CrashPunks /ID.json. You get the metadata. So it's up to the client to just replace that ID with the token ID that they're actually querying for. So it is part of the CIP 16 standard, and it's part of ERC 1115. So it's still a fairly standard way to do it. There's no harm in doing this for any NFT contracts you own, because any NFT indexer that conforms to the CIP 16 spec will pick this up, including our indexers, Byzantion's indexers, and anybody else that's running an NFT metadata indexer. And uh, when Clarity 2.1 comes out, this should be moot anyway, since you should be able to convert the integer to string easily.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. That was actually reaffirming, so that's good. Thank you.
I have,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a couple here, a couple more. Of your team, how many are coders and how many are marketers?
We don't have anybody in like a purely marketing role, but we do have people that like span operations, support, marketing, sort of all together. So Joe is one of one of those people that sort of helps on campaigns, helps on support, helps on a lot of communication with the community as well. Nick, who is my co-founder and COO, is also non-technical. He focuses on everything that I have no clue about, like the legal stuff, the operations, the stuff that I'm awful at. And then we have Carol helping out on operations as well. And of course, Brett, Eli Herf helping out on community feedback and engagement. And the rest of the team is our coders in one way or another. I mean, me and Trevor TX Post do a lot of the Clarity smart contract work. Trevor does a create portal. Jack N does Discord bots over here, and now a lot of the website front end work. Sam is front end. We have another Jack on back end. So the team is quite varied. Like even on our technical the technical side, we have a lot of different stuff that we need to do. Like it's not just we have the create portal, we have the smart contracts, we have the front end, we have the database and back end. So there's a lot of different expertise needed on the coding side and a lot of different expertise needed on the operations side as like a consumer facing company as well, and as an artist facing company as well.
Okay, great. And so there's nine people on your team, on the Gamma team?
We have, it depends on how you count, because we have, for example, one contractor who helps out with the nodes who might be temporary, and we have, a part-time person, and for example, like Sarah works on like the newsletter, but she only works a few hours a week. So it depends on how you count the head count, but it's around there. Yeah.
Okay. Just two more short ones, I think. I'm curious, what is the intent when you sell an NFT? Is the intent that you should delete it and stop using it?
Yeah, I think it's like there's kind of the way I see NFTs is kind of like the metaphor that I sometimes use is like the DMV's vehicle registration. It's like a book that maps IDs to owners. And when you went through the Clarity technical session, you saw like how true that actually was, that NFTs are really just a map of two things. They map IDs, like token ID to owner and token ID to metadata. Like the SIP19 spec only has 4 functions, right? Transfer, get owner, get token URI, are the main ones, right? And the real meat of it is in get owner and get token URI. And so the metaphor is like, if you have a book that maps like vehicle registrations to owners, and you make a photocopy of that book or whatever, and you suddenly change the names, it doesn't really mean anything if it's not in the hands of the person that actually decides what ownership means, whether that's the artist, whether that's a government agency that has those assets and has that control. And so I don't think there's anything like prescriptive about it. It's not like saying, because you don't own this NFT, you have to change your profile picture or something like that. It's really up to the social consensus of what that ledger actually means, that these sort of patterns kind of emerge. And so it's not something that's really like a technical question, it's more of like a social question of like what's commonly adopted among communities, what's seen by other people as socially acceptable or not. What or even from a legal perspective, depending on the NFT license, is this even a thing that you can do legally? So there's a lot of questions that come up, and I don't think there's like a right or wrong answer to it. It just depends on the circumstances and the specific attributes or specific license of that NFT.
It is kind of,
And
sorry,
my
just
last question. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think it is kind of funny comparing it to the car history, because like if you have an NFT that you own, let's say I have my Megapont ape and I make like 100 derivatives of it, or you have a car and you get into 5 accidents in the lifetime of the car. When you sell it, like you can pull the history of that thing and say, oh, do I really want an NFT that someone has made 100 derivative of? And obviously that's all historically stored on the chain. So you should be able to figure that out. Obviously it could be a different smart contract, so maybe you don't see that right away, but maybe someone can build a Web3 app that gives you the NFT facts, the car facts of the NFT before you buy. Anyway, on to your third question.
Okay. So you have to decide yourself, like the intent. Okay, I'll delete it, or no, I won't delete it. I'm using it as my avatar, or like, yeah, you have to decide for yourself, I guess, what the intent is.
And deal with the consequences if you if you go against whatever the legal prescription is or whatever the social consensus is around it.
Right. One of the things that's slowing me down, like I'm writing a real estate app right now in PHP, and it's my first big commercial project. But anyway, the thing that's slowing me down, I figured out, is not being able to go to Stack Overflow and ask a question about clarity. Like I'm so used to doing that with PHP, right, or Laravel, and I go to Stack Overflow and I look for a snippet or an answer, and I can't do that with clarity really, and so I guess is the answer you rely on the Discord developer. You rely on that?
Yeah, Discord honestly is the best place. Either the Discord search, actually I've found a lot of answers to problems that I've had just using Discord search. You can't search in like a keyword way like Google. You have to be a lot more specific about what you want, or be a lot more determined in the way that you search Discord. But like, for example, if you like, there are plenty of ways, complicated ways to do integer to string in Clarity. And if you search the Stacks Discord for like uint-to-string, you'll see several examples of people trying to create a function that does uint to string. So it's or just ask there and people will point you to answers, because I find people in the Stacks community, especially with Clarity, are just very willing to help and very willing when you run into issues to troubleshoot them.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, that's the way to go. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
If I can jump in on this one real quick, Chad, I do know that Stacks has recognized this gap, right, with documentation and being able to go to Stack Overflow. And they are trying to push to get more information on there, right, to get people asking questions on Stack Overflow. So I will drop the link in the chat here to like the Clarity specific threads so far. And I mean, I think it's just going to come down to people using it, right, and developers going on there and answering questions, and hopefully over time, right, we'll build up a big enough community that it's easier to do a Google search for a Clarity question. So I dropped those in the chat.
I got them. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we are here pretty much at the hour. So yeah, thank you everybody for being here today. Really appreciate you guys joining us and having this conversation. I found it to be very helpful, and hopefully everybody else did too. Thank you.
For
Thank
sure.
you. And the work that you're doing in the Clarity Bootcamp is incredible. I think we need so many more Clarity developers in the ecosystem, and so many more builders, and stuff like this is super invaluable. So I'm grateful to be asked on, and great to meet you all.
Thank you. You too. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you all so
for your
much.
time.
Good luck, everyone.